And now for our feature presentation.
You're listening to the JB and Goldwater Show. Live, loud, and online.
He's going to go into the end zone.
Puts it up. Yes! There goes Davis.
Oh, my God.
Davis is going to run it all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game.
American Pharoah is finally the one. American Pharoah has won the Triple Crown.
And Barnes hits one high. It's a deep. It is out of here. High fly ball into right field. She is gone.
Unbelievable. A home run for Gibson. And the Dodgers have won the game 5-4. I don't believe what I just saw.
Here are your hosts, Jamie Bradford and Darren Goldwater.
All right, greetings and a good Thursday afternoon, and welcome aboard the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online, and driven by our friends and yours at Stokes Volkswagen. Check them out at stokesvw.com. Check us out at jbandgoldwatershow.com. We're here until 2 o'clock on a gorgeous Thursday afternoon in the Low Country, wherever you're listening from. We hope that the weather's as nice there as it is here. That's Darren. To my left, I'm Jamie. And over the next couple of hours, we'll continue to get you primed and ready to go for this college football weekend. We've got some Braves and Major League Baseball news to get to as well. We've got some NFL conversations happening, some golf today with Scott Glaze. So it's going to be jam-packed around here. You can watch for free on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and, of course, on Periscope, and you can listen for free on the Podbean app, and we really appreciate that. All those platforms are available on our website at jbandgoldwatershow.com, and you can follow us on social media collectively at JB and Goldwater, and then he, of course, is at Darren Goldwater. I am at Sports Radio JB, and now, Darren, we are 3 minutes under 48 hours away from kickoff in the SEC.
3 minutes under 48 hours away. We're close. Yeah. We're 2 days away. We got, 55 hours before the Gamecocks play. Just a little bit more than that, but we're ready.
Yeah.
We're ready for Saturday night.
Yeah, we're fired up and ready to go. David Cloninger is, too. He'll join us at 12:30. DC, of course, with the Post and Courier. We will discuss this big-time matchup with him, and then we'll also talk to David about the ins and outs of Williams-Brice Stadium this year. A couple of new things in place to keep folks safe, for anything from concessions to the brand-new Gamecock statue that's out front and everything in between, all coming up here in about 25 minutes with David. At 1:30, Mike Wilson from the Knoxville News-Sentinel will join us, and we'll get a look from the other side, the Tennessee side. Vols coming to town for the first time in 2 years, and they have not had a lot of success in the last 14 seasons in Williams-Brice Stadium. Only one win since 2006. They've got a tight end who's out now for the year, according to Jeremy Pruitt. They, of course, had over 40 players out at times in the preseason because of COVID, or contact tracing really was a lot of that. So we'll kind of get a behind-the-scenes look at some of that information, talk about some of the matchups in play on Saturday night at Williams-Brice, and much, much more. Scott Glaze at 1 o'clock today on golf. So we're pretty packed, Darren. Fired up for that. Do have football tonight in the NFL and at the collegiate level in the NFL. And we'll hit on this a little bit later, but it's the Dolphins and the Jaguars, and that game doesn't really mean anything to anybody, and I totally understand that. But could we see Tua Tagovailoa? There's reports that the dude hasn't even been hit since the last time he was hit in Tuscaloosa when he got hurt. Like, they didn't touch him in the preseason. I don't know if that's good or bad, but we'll get to it in just a little while. And then tonight in college football, you've got I think this is an interesting matchup personally. You've got UAB and South Alabama. And, because of how the schedule is set up this year, that more of the country has seen teams like UAB and South Alabama than maybe in years past. So tonight from Hancock Whitney Stadium down in Mobile, they'll both be on display, both at 1-1, and they've both kind of flashed this year that they might be, decent football teams.
Yeah, I mean, with a lot of the movement, with some of the cancellations, you're seeing teams get nationally televised that generally don't. Coastal Carolina last week, again this week. UAB's been nationally televised a couple times. This one right here is another good example of a game that probably wouldn't have been a Thursday night featured game, but it is. So if you're a diehard college football nut like we are, then yeah, you'll check it out and see what these teams are about.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, Coach Muschamp tonight. He'll be at Backstreet's Bar and Grill in Columbia. You can listen to that here locally or wherever. If you're not in the Columbia market, just pull up that Gamecocks app, and it's free, and you'll be able to tune in at 7 o'clock, so you might have that going and have some college or pro football on TV. But I'll tell you what, I'm really anxious. I know everybody's been talking about the AAC, the American Athletic Conference, and the Sun Belt, of course, has gotten a bunch of props, and they should. But I think that there are some interesting teams in Conference USA. Marshall's 2-0, and of course they beat App State. You've got La Tech, who's 1-0, and it was a close win last week, but La Tech has really done well over the last few years under Skip Holtz. Here's UAB. This program that was revived under Bill Clark. The last 2 years combined, they've won, I think, 20 games. They won 11 2 years ago, and I think they won 9 last year.
Sounds about right.
And what do they look like moving forward? A little bit of a surprise that Southern Miss is 0-2. That's a proud football program down there. In the East, I mentioned Marshall, but you got Florida Atlantic, and they haven't been able to get on the field. Neither has FIU or Old Dominion. But Florida Atlantic, Lane Kiffin, left a pretty good program down there. And and Willie Taggart's there now. So anxious to kind of see what those guys look like. Middle Tennessee State is 0-2, but Rick Stockstill usually has a pretty good offense up there. So I think there's some pretty good teams at Conference USA, and if they can get a lot of them on the field at least consistently, as the season unfolds, you might find that some of those teams can maybe beat a couple of the big boys. Who knows? And
now's your chance to see them, because unless you really want to, unless you're a fan of one of those schools or the conference itself, and you are going to go seek out those games later in the year, now's the chance to watch them when they're on prime time, when they're on your usual typical sports cable networks, because hopefully soon we've got a couple more leagues getting set to come back, which will then start pushing some of the smaller ones back to their ESPN Plus or Stadium or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, in the Sun Belt, you got Coastal and Georgia Southern and App State and Georgia State and all those guys doing their thing. But what Darren is talking about is the Pac-12 and maybe the return of MACtion. We'll see. We'll get to MAC in a minute, but today is expected to be a vote, right?
Yes.
In the Pac-12 as to whether they will return to football this fall, when that will be, what that might look like. It's been kind of a strange situation, though, on the West Coast because, all right, so you had Darren, I think it was last week. I'm pretty sure it was last week where, the not narrative, but like the information that we had, I say we collectively as a country was, well, it's going to be a while because, Oregon and California, they're not even open for business. The state law says that you can't do this, that, and the other. And then Governor Newsom in California was like, y'all can play.
Right.
Here, that's up to you, local, and y'all do whatever you want. If you want to play, play.
Yep.
And everybody was like, wait a second, hold on. What the hell is going on here? So it looks like they've kind of cleared up some things, at least from a state level. I believe, from what I understand, that even if they we're going to return to play today and it's going to be Halloween or November or whatever, I think they still have a couple of kinks, correct me if I'm wrong, in some local municipalities just to kind of clear, and hopefully they can do that. I think they feel pretty optimistic about it.
Yeah, there's a chance. So with this vote, it looks like they have the votes to come back to play. what the Pac-12 is going to be deciding on, do they all come back on a uniform start date, say November 7th? Or will there be an October 31st start and not everybody is able to start at the same time? So that seems to be the main holdup right now for the Pac-12. Everyone looks like they're going to go. It's just a matter of when are you going to be ready to go, and will the conference launch, for lack of a better term, with a week prior to some schools being ready.
Okay. And, I think that the Arizona schools, I think that they're pretty much going to be in the clear here from a government standpoint, right? I think Colorado is going to be okay. It sounds like Utah is going to be in pretty good shape. Obviously, UCLA and Southern Cal together, I think, got together and have been kind of working with L.A. County to be able to get their situation kind of resolved, so to speak. It looks like Oregon's kind of coming around. The state of Washington, you got Washington and Washington State up there. So we'll see where it all goes. But as of now, it's pointing in a decent direction for the Pac-12. And it's pointing in a decent direction for the MAC as well. They're going to vote tomorrow, Darren. And it looks like they're going to vote tomorrow to start the season the weekend before Halloween, which would be October the 24th, and possibly only play a 6-game season with a couple of other, different things in there, maybe trying to not stay in hotels the night before and trimming travel rosters and stuff like that. But it would be football for the MAC, and it would be 6 games. And, I still ask the same question, though, with some of these, I say smaller leagues, but let's be a little bit more correct here. Some of these G5 leagues, I still ask the same question from a cost standpoint or in perspective here. Like, it wasn't that long ago that when a lot of these leagues started kind of hitching their wagon to a bad bandwagon to be on at that point in time, which was the Big Ten,
right?
Or not bad one, but maybe the incorrect. They took the incorrect road. What if Lewis and Clark went the wrong direction? That's kind of what they did.
Got out of the gates early.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
They jumped the starting line,
right? But like when that happened, a lot of what we were hearing from reporters who were essentially on the ground covering these leagues was, look, guys, they can't afford this. They just can't afford it.
Interesting breaking, I guess, about this right now, about the Pac-12. Granted, we're talking about the MAC here, but the Pac-12, Boulder County, which is Colorado, has issued an order halting all gatherings for college-aged residents. That applies for football teams. So the Buffs cannot practice or work out for 2 weeks. This is according to Brian Howell, who covers them. So if they can't practice for 2 weeks, then what does that do to the Pac-12 timeline?
Well, what time is their vote expected to be today? I'm assuming it's later on our time.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, right now it's 9:15 out there, so
not
yet.
So Colorado's going to have to bring this information to the table today.
Oh, it's out there. Yeah, okay. I mean,
this is what we know. This
we
is
know
what we're
this.
looking at.
Yep.
For college-aged residents.
So I think the issue was in Boulder. There were probably some parties going on,
right.
And I guess local municipalities decided we have one way to stop it. And if you are between 18 and 23, you're not gathering in a crowd.
Well, I mean,
if you're 17, go ahead, go party. If you're 18,
if you're 24, if you're a med student, 24 and above, you're in the clear. Have at it.
Yeah.
What if you went back to school or you're studying something in your 40s? Are you college-aged resident or no?
No, you can go party.
Okay.
Just wear your mask.
God bless Colorado. Smoke all the dope you want to, but don't get together more than 10 people.
Whatever it is. Pretty much.
Okay. Well, staying in the same lane here, kind of. I hope that one of these that covers the sport nationally is going to ask somebody who might, maybe have the correct answer in the MAC or wherever it is. If you couldn't afford it last month, how can you afford it now?
I think what's interesting is the narrative has, whether anyone will publicly admit it, the narrative has changed.
Oh,
here.
absolutely.
I mean,
exactly what's happened.
Right. It was, is this safe? Can we do this? Is this smart for our student athletes, for the safety of not just them, but the general public? Can we test? That was what I would think would be the correct narrative. Now it has changed to, well, wait, everyone else is doing it. They're going to get some money. We need to get our money.
Yeah.
And
how are they doing it? And how are they doing it safely? Oh, wait, it's working.
I wonder, was it Cloninger? Cloninger's going to be on with us here again in a couple of minutes. Somebody last week pointed out that maybe some of these conferences are just willing to take on more debt right now than they were, say, 5, 6, 7 weeks ago, because they understand, all right, well, maybe we're more optimistic of playing X amount of games. So if we take on this amount of debt now, we believe that we'll be able to sustain that if we can play 6, 8, 10 football games.
Because of TV contract?
Yeah, yes, and the revenue that will come in, which will be substantially below what it typically is.
Oh, yeah.
But at least there is some revenue that can offset the cost of this testing.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, hopefully,
Right,
hopefully these schools and these conferences have been studying this. I'm assuming that they have been. But it's just it's fascinating how it's changed. And I'm not even sitting here saying, because it'd be a lie.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sitting here saying that, oh, look, everything's fine. Run on out there, you're going to be just fine. Well, that's not true, because there's games being canceled every weekend. Like, we know that. But we also knew that there were going to be bumps in the road. Like, we knew that. I mean, that was coming. Which teams it was going to affect, who knew? I mean, I don't know if anybody thought that someone would be affected like maybe as much as Houston has been, at least to start the year. I mean, they can't get on the field. They just had, their fourth game?
Yeah.
Postponed or canceled?
And it's bad luck. I mean, it's not them. It's opponents. And for the first time, what we've seen, maybe the second time, is so the Notre Dame outbreak has affected South Florida because they just played each other. And now South Florida is saying that they've got a couple.
Cautious.
Yeah, I think they've got a couple positives also.
Do they? Okay.
I believe they do.
Okay.
But that's the first time, I believe, maybe the second with Arkansas State a couple of weeks ago, where it's gone from one team to another team that they've played. But, again, there are procedures in place that say, well, okay, stop. We understand we're going to have to miss some games. It probably will get to the point where some teams, even in power conferences, play a different amount of games. Some teams may play 9, some teams may play 8 or 7.
No, well, that's already the case with schedules, anyways. But you're talking about the leagues the way that the league is set up, and the fact that in the Big Ten you could have 8, and then somebody might only play 6 or 7, and in the SEC you might have a couple who only play 8 or 9.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean that very well could be happening right now. In the ACC,
Yep.
I know that Notre Dame and Wake, I think they're scheduled to make that game up on my birthday, actually, December 12th.
Yes.
But, it could happen again somewhere because now they're both using that open date, which was their open date. And if it happens again, you're out of luck.
Yeah. I think that they have one more open date in October, and they chose a mutual one, Wake and Notre Dame, but they chose the December 12th one to make up the game. I don't know the reason why they chose that one, but that's the one they chose. But yeah, it'll be fascinating because we don't have a rule book or guidelines for this yet, but the season has started. If we get to the end of the season, and let's just use the SEC for example, if we get to the end of the season and most teams have played 9 and say Alabama played 8, how do you decide? Let's say Alabama's 8-0. And let's say Auburn is, well, that wouldn't be the greatest example in the world. Let's say Alabama's 8-0 and someone ahead of them is 8-0 or 9-0 or something like that. How do you decide who's into the SEC championship game? We don't know.
Yeah.
Same with the ACC. We don't know.
Right. But
they're going to have to issue some type of language from the conference to say this is what will happen in that event.
Yeah, I'm kind of guessing here that these leagues are waiting until that happens to issue a statement like that, which I kind of wish we already knew, but they might not know. I mean, they might not feel comfortable issuing something and having to go back and change it because they might not have to,
right.
or they might have to change it multiple times, and so we'll kind of see where that goes. I mean, Greg Sankey actually echoed those same comments yesterday, as a matter of fact, and. But he was talking about the college football playoff because he said, look, these are his exact words, they will be, quote, facing a number of challenges. but he also went on to say we're going to trust them with that. And so, we'll see what happens, obviously, with championship games and getting into the playoff and how that hurts or helps teams. Could help somebody. He referred to the College Football Playoff Selection Committee's use of data points in making evaluations. He said, quote, "It suggests to me the more games that are played, the better one is under this selection criteria." So that's interesting. If per your example, if somehow Bama only plays 8 games this year, or even 9, and then the next best team in the SEC plays 10, but say Bama's 8-0,
Yep.
and then that team's 9-1,
Yeah, percentage-wise, Bama gets in. But what if the other team say, well, why not us?
Yeah. What you can't do now, though, Darren, is like they're going to have to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to hurt somebody's feelings. It's going to happen. Somebody's going to get the raw end of the deal. But like, you can't get to the end of the year and say, look, this is just a cluster. We're not going to be able to play the playoff. You can't do it.
Nope.
So like you've already kicked the can like so far down the road that but you've kicked the can like towards the finish line, as in like we're going to get there. And there's going to be some people that don't like it, but we're going to get there.
I think what would make sense, instead of necessarily a percentage point thing, maybe like conference tiebreakers that are in play already and they're used all the time. As you go down the list, sometimes you get to offensive points scored and defensive points allowed and certain factors like that. It wouldn't surprise me if those types of landmarks, which isn't the right word, but stats are used in order to determine a champion in the event that we're sitting there looking at that. I mean, we could easily be looking at this situation in multiple leagues, and there's no guideline for what they're going to do yet.
No, yeah, I mean, so in the ACC you have 15 teams and just the top 2 are going to go, but that's not the case in the Big Ten or in the SEC or for that matter any other league out there right now. So you're going to have to determine a division champion if it's not cut and dry. It could be, but it might not be. And if it's not, what you're saying, you're going to have to bring, as Greg Sankey has said, all these data points into the conversation somehow. And then, yeah, naturally, that's probably going to favor teams that have played more games. If you have like a matching component, if you have, let's say 2 teams that play 9 games and they're both sitting there at 7-2. And, one of them didn't play the other one.
Uh-huh.
Well, that's not even possible because they would be playing in their own division. So if you've got equal records in your own division, you've played each other. So obviously, if one beat the other, then you're going to have a head-to-head.
Unless your game got canceled.
Yeah.
So we're both 7-0, but our 8th game was
unless
canceled.
the game got canceled. Correct.
Right.
That's where it would fall.
It's gonna be a mess. But look, we'll take the mess.
Yeah.
The mess is better than nothing.
It certainly gives you and I a bunch to talk about, and others. No doubt about that. 843-321-8893 if you want to hit us up on the text line or give us a phone call. Certainly do that. More football ahead in about 10 minutes with David Cloninger. He's in Columbia. We got an update coming up on the Gamecocks that you will certainly want to hear, especially if you're going to the ball game this weekend. All right, real quick into baseball. And not good news, but it appears not bad news for the Atlanta Braves, who are looking to make a deep run and maybe try to win the World Series here in 2020. Max Fried yesterday went to field a ground ball coming off the mound and twisted his ankle. They're calling it a tweak. And he went back out there and hadn't given up a home run all year, promptly gave up back-to-back. And then they got him out of the ball game, and after looking at it, they said, look, it looks like just a tweak. But they're going to be really careful moving forward with Max Fried because Braves aren't winning anything without Max Fried on the mound this fall.
No.
And but certainly that was a little bit concerning for the Braves, who did go on to win the game. And they've won now, their 3rd in a row against the Marlins. I think the score last night was 9-4. And just continue to put up massive offensive numbers. They're now 34-22 on the year, 18-8 at home, and they got the Marlins tonight at Truist Park at 7-10. Of course, the Marlins fighting to get into the postseason as well. But if the Braves win tonight, they will sweep this 4-game series from Miami.
So last night on our JB and Goldwater Twitter page, I quoted a tweet and said, "Is this a jinx?" It was from CJ Nitkowski. He said Max Fried is going to make his 11th and final regular season start without having allowed a home run. The last pitcher to win to start at least 11 games and not allow a home run in a season was Edward Pyle with the Senators of Washington in 1943.
Ooh.
So before Fried got hurt, he gave up 2 in the first.
Yeah. Yeah, it was tough for Max last night, but it looks like he's fine.
Yeah, that's good.
It looks like he's fine, and the Braves will move forward, hopefully still with their ace. Again, 34-22, and perched on top of the National League East. Not maybe as much good news for Mike Clevenger.
No.
And he might be having a beer to drown his sorrows if it's bad news.
Yeah, you can come back to Charleston, man, where you got your college career started, and go to any of the 3 locations at Dog and Dog, Mount Pleasant, Park West, Bell Hall, and Clemens Ferry. But yeah, no, not the same news for Clevenger. Re-aggravating an injury. Remember, this was one of the huge trade deadline deals.
Oh, it was the deal. It was the deal.
Right. So, and the Padres, who are, the darling, first time in the postseason since 2006, they need him.
Yeah.
They really need Clev. And this is not great news for him.
Tightness in his biceps tendon area of his throwing arm. The team awaiting the results of an MRI I have not seen today that those results have been published yet. But we'll keep our eyes on that. The former Citadel Bulldog, the Padres certainly will need him in the postseason. And then, of course, last night, the Tampa Bay Rays won the division in the American League East for the first time since 2010. It's been a decade, and the Rays have made noise since then, and they look primed to make more this year. 37-20. They got 3 games left here in the regular season. They've been good at home. They've been good on the road. They're 7-3 in their last 10. Appear to be playing really good baseball heading into the postseason. They're 4.5 up on the Yankees, but that doesn't matter anymore because they've won the East. The Yankees, of course, are 7-3 in their last 10 as well, even though they lost last night. Here's the difference with the Yankees and the Rays this year, though. Yankees really good at home, 21-7. But it doesn't matter what happens. They won't be playing at home in the postseason because nobody will.
Nope.
They're only 11-17 on the road. Matter of fact, the Rays are the only team in the East with a winning record on the road.
I was high on the Rays before the season started. I said that this is the team I'm liking out of the AL, and they're making me look pretty good right now. But it's part of the fun of this year. The Padres haven't been to the postseason in 14 years. The Rays haven't won the division in 10 years. So while you have some, let's call them blue bloods like the Braves and Cardinals who could match up for the 80th time in the postseason, there are other teams that are kind of having a new ride in.
Yeah. Here are your clinchers thus far. The Dodgers out west, the Braves in the east. Nobody yet in the Central, although the Cubs are 3.5 up on the St. Louis Cardinals. That, of course, is in the National League. We've mentioned the Rays in the east. Out west, and I picked them before the year started. I said, careful and watch out. Everybody was all on board with the Astros. It is the Oakland Athletics, who have won the West, 6.5 up on Houston, 9 up on the Angels, and they're 34-21, rolling right along into the postseason. And in the Central, it's tight. The Twins have a half-game lead on the White Sox, and they also have a 2.5-game lead on the Cleveland Indians. However, all 3 of those teams are in the postseason at this point in time in the American League. Still waiting on 2 to qualify on that side of things. Still waiting on 4 to qualify in the National League. That will be decided over the next few days, and we'll be on top of it. It's Thursday. Buy one, get one half off. Foot-long cheesesteaks. Foot-long. Who wants the foot-long?
Yep.
In the words of Harry Dunn from Dumb and Dumber. DB'scheesesteaks.com is where you can find the entire menu. They are in Avondale and West Ashley. Buy one, get one half off. Whatever you do, don't forget the boardwalk fries. I'll tell you this. Just order a large. Just a large that will feed 2, if not 3, at DB's Cheesesteaks. They've got great hot dogs, cheeseburgers, and much, much more. Hoagies. Subs as well. But it is the tastiest, best cheesesteak in Charleston. You voted them number 1, Charleston's Choice. DB's Cheesesteaks right there in West Ashley. And we hope that you'll try it out today at a good deal. Buy one, get one half off. Download any delivery app or use any delivery app you have and have them drop it off right there at your doorstep. Coming up next at our doorstep, it's David Cloninger. He'll be live from Columbia, South Carolina. Gamecocks Vols set to kick it off at 7:30 under the lights of Williams-Brice Stadium. We'll get an update on the ballpark. A couple of new things in place this year for fans planning to attend the game. And something really neat now is set that you can just take a picture in front of if you'd like to. It's one big, giant Gamecock in Columbia. Hang tight. The JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen. We'll be right back.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road with exciting news. Every 2020 Tiguan S, our best-selling third-row SUV, is $3,500 off plus 0 APR for 72 months. But wait, there's more. With $299 down, you can own the Tiguan S for just $299 per month for 72 months at 0% APR. Not just one at this price, over 22 Tiguans to choose from. All $3,500 off plus 0 APR for 72 months and $299 down, $299 per month. Best of all, at Stokes Volkswagen, we are so desperate for used cars that we'll take any trade in any condition, running or not. We need your trade more, so we'll flat out give you more. And don't worry about your credit. Our lenders are more lenient than ever. So if you're interested in saving $3,500 on a new Volkswagen Tiguan S and owning it for $299 down, $299 per month, come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or StokesVW.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW. Plus tax tag includes $399.50 closing fee. Offer subject to lender approval. Expires month end.
DB's Cheesesteaks, the tastiest, juiciest, and now award-winning cheesesteaks in the Low Country. DB's Cheesesteaks delivers, and not just in quality. Download DoorDash, Uber Eats, or your delivery app of choice and have it dropped off at your doorstep. Original chicken, buffalo chicken, even pizza cheesesteaks, not to mention incredible cheeseburgers, massive hot dogs, and dynamite hoagies. It's all there for you and your family. DB's Cheesesteaks in West Ashley. dbscheesesteaks.com.
Hey guys, it's Darren, just here to tell you about our good friends over at Dog and Duck. They've got 3 locations, one in Bell Hall, one in Park West, and one, the new one, out on Clements Ferry. I can tell you from personal experience, it's the only restaurant in town that I've been to since this whole place has reopened. Everything is socially distant, very comfortable, and to top it all off, great selection of rotating craft beers, food specials every day, family meals. If you don't want to go in, you can order it and have some curbside pickup as well. Dog and Duck, 3 locations, proud partners of the JB and Goldwater Show.
What's up, everybody? This is Patrick Davis, and you are listening to my friends JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Bentley throws a quick slant round. That's Debo at the 50, 40, give him a stiff arm at the 30, run away at the 20. Are you kidding me?
This is Rodgers again to the 25, 20, 15, 10. Rodgers scores!
Mitchell, pump fake, throws to Rice. Touchdown! He caught it in traffic. It was worth the wait for Steve Spurrier.
With the ball advantage, he dives. Touchdown! Walks it up, looking for Kelly. Touchdown! Can you believe it?
Left side, Jeffries got space and a touchdown.
Maybe some of those calls coming in just 2 days. Gamecocks, Vols, 7:30 on the SEC Network Saturday night under the lights of Williams-Brice Stadium. To talk about that game and much, much more, it's our friend and everybody's friend, David Cloninger on Twitter at DCPNC with the Post and Courier. And South Carolina will be dressed in all black Saturday evening as the bright orange of Tennessee Nation comes to town. And right now, David is dressed in all black, riding that brand new Gamecock sitting right outside of Williams-Brice Stadium. What's up, man?
Oh, dang, you blew my cover. How'd you know?
We've been searching for Joe Morrison for 30 years. We found him. He's perched on top of the bronze Gamecock statue.
Oh, okay. Well, I know that he was more of a Marlboro man.
Yeah.
I'm more of a Lark's man myself. You ever smoked a Lark?
No.
Well, you just roll up a piece of shag carpet. It's about the same thing.
Sounds great.
No thanks. That would have been a neat. Somebody should, create a cardboard cutout of old Joe Mo and slap a cigarette in his mouth and just sit him up there on top of that Gamecock statue one day and snap a photo. That'd be pretty neat.
Like he's riding a bull.
Yeah. Hey, look, he has returned.
Well, That would be one of the lighter disciplinary measures faced under the Morrison era, but we'll have to see. They're going to have that thing guarded pretty religiously, pretty much every night of the season. But it's up now. It looks really nice, and hopefully they're getting to work on the base of it. I was by there yesterday and saw it, and it's impressive. I will say that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that on Saturday. Actually, it's only been in the works for 25 years. But it has arrived and it is up, and Carolina fans who are going, however many of you will be there, it'll be somewhere between 19 and 20,000, including students. You'll get your first glance at it. All right, DC, before we get into the ball game, give us an update on some of the new things this year at Williams-Brice Stadium, obviously accommodating the COVID situation. And I know that you've been in the ballpark a couple of times from taking the media tour and things like that. Just kind of take us around Williams-Brice, some of the neat things you've seen, and some of what we should expect to see and encounter, maybe weights and things like that to get into the ballpark on Saturday.
All right, Jamie. Well, if you're coming, if you have a ticket and you're coming, be advised that the parking lots, the USC controlled parking lots, open 2.5 hours before game time. Obviously they normally open 5 to 6 hours before game time, and that has changed this year. So if you're in the Gamecock Park or Fairgrounds, it's going to open at 5 o'clock, the gates for the parking lots. Tailgating in those lots will be discouraged and prohibited. You will not be allowed to put up a tent, anything like that. They cannot say the same for the private lots around Williams-Brice. They've expressed their wishes to the guys running that, but it's up to those guys if they actually want to enforce that no tailgating. But the idea, Jamie, is that the parking lots open 2.5 hours before game time. The gates to the stadium open 2 hours before kickoff. And so people are they want the system to be come park, go to the stadium, watch the game, leave. It's just what they have to deal with right now. And that's what they're hoping folks will do. Some fans will be getting email or text messages to their phones about times that they can go to the gates and expect to get in. They do have spaced out lines already in place and a smaller number of gates than normal in order to be able to hopefully speed up the process of getting the fans in there. So that's kind of before the game. There will be no Gamecock walk. You cannot welcome the team coming to the stadium. They just cannot do that in this day and age. So the team's just going to pull up in the buses on Bluff Road there, right beside where they normally end up with the Gamecock walk, and go right into the stadium. You will not be allowed to gather on either side and welcome the team in. So that's kind of the deal before the game. Once you get in, you'll go to your seat, and there are 4 chairback seats in a pod on one end of a row, actually on both ends of a row. And they've done that so there's the end of the row taken, the whole middle is open, and then the other end of the row taken. That's so you don't have to crawl over anybody's feet or lap trying to get to the aisle or to the concessions or whatever. You can leave from either end of the row. And there's a space, an empty row, in between each 4-seat pod. So that's kind of what you're going to be looking at if you're coming. At least the weather's supposed to be a lot clearer. It's supposed to pour down tomorrow night, but I believe Saturday night's pretty clear, although the heat's probably going to get back up there around 80 degrees. So just be advised that's what you're going to be looking at. And who knows how they're going to be able to enforce this or what the penalty will be if you're found in violation. But that's what they want. That's what they're trying to do to keep everybody safe. So that's what you're going to be looking at.
All right. I know that they did not sell all of the tickets that they anticipated they would based on the feedback that they had from season ticket holders. So they did release some to the public, but from what I understand, DC, they've released now those final 1,100 just back to the students. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. That is correct. And the main thing is why when they release those tickets back to the general public, Jamie, you can't buy just one seat. Right. You got to buy the 4-seat pod. And I don't know how many people can find 3 buddies to go with them at this late date or who would want to go and can pony up the cash for that. But I know a lot of people who are just looking for one single ticket that are trying to get hooked in, with another 4-seat pod. It's extremely difficult to do, and especially when you can't get an actual paper printed ticket this year. It's all digital. So if you're coming down here and you're planning to maybe scalp a ticket, be very, very aware that it's all digital, and I'm not sure how that can even work if you're trying to buy one. And I wouldn't be trusting the guy giving you a digital code that might get scanned to get into the stadium.
No. And that's what I'm such a traditionalist. I save almost all of my tickets. I like to write the scores on them, even the bad ones. I've got a bunch of them at the house. I'm gonna miss being able to scan those things and go in there. Now, obviously, being around the ballpark. Final question here, and then we'll actually talk about the game, which is what we need to talk about. But being around the ballpark, DC, get the 2001 club and the Cockaboose Club, and all the new suites and stuff like that. What I think you and I have discussed this before, but now kind of absorbing it a little bit more. What has impressed you the most?
Well, I mean, it's really first class. It matches up with a lot of facilities I've seen at the SEC's other stadiums, or the Big Ten, the ACC stadiums that I've been fortunate enough to go to. It matches those, but it's one of those things where it's only going to be for the higher money boosters, depending on your level of giving. So it's kind of like the Cockaboose Railroad, Jamie. Yep. I mean, I know everybody says, oh, it's tradition, it's unique, and this is what you got to do, and it is true. I mean, nobody else has a lot of tricked out cabooses outside their football stadium. But it's not like the average Joe and student can go in there.
No.
Those things are pretty exclusive. So that's always kind of the things that's not mentioned when it comes to the Cockaboose. A little bit of the same thing here. I mean, these new suites and areas and clubs are really, really nice, but you got to pay a little bit extra to get in there, and that all comes with your ticket prices. But it's all in the name of improving the game day experience for as many people as possible. Obviously, you can't do that when you have a lot of open air seating like Williams-Brice does, but they've tried to do as much as they can for as many as they can. And, hopefully there'll be a lot of people who get to take advantage of that this year. But, when you're only operating at 20% capacity, you're 25% capacity, that's going to be real tough to do.
On Twitter at DCPNC, David Cloninger, of course, with the Post and Courier, and getting into our preview between the Gamecocks and the Vols. We do have Mike Wilson with the Knox News Sentinel coming up at 1:30 this afternoon, but
that old scoundrel. Well, you watch out for him.
Yeah,
watch out for him.
Well, I think Gene gave us his number, right? Was it Gene?
Well, I reached out to Sapikoff. Yeah, I said, listen, who should we reach out to of your favorite Vol beat writers or reporters? He said Mike Wilson. I said, all right, let's do it.
Okay.
I'll tell you what, the first thing you need to ask him is how many trivia contests he won while he was living in Columbia. Because if he says, more than one, he's a liar. Right? And you specifically need to ask him how many times he beat me face-to-face. Because if he says anything other than none,
no.
Well, but that's a whole other story.
So we got reporter rivalries and like football rivalries. Yeah. This is fun.
No, man, it ain't no rivalry, man, when the guy can't ever beat you.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, all right. Throwing haymakers.
Where was trivia?
Village Idiot.
Oh,
man.
Of course.
Home away from home.
Yeah, that's right. Well, they just opened back up. Good for Brian.
They opened up the 5 Points location, and, man, it was sorely missed. It looks terrific in there. You guys ought to come down and see it. That goes out for anybody who might be coming to Columbia for the game or anything else. Stop by the Village Idiot and 5 Points. It looks fantastic. It's been out there 30 years now, and it's still going strong. So stop on by for the best pizza in town.
It is. There's no question. It is the best pizza in town, and they treat you well. And I got to watch Steven Garcia dance on a table one night with his pants buckled around his forehead.
Fun.
Yeah. But
only once? That was a frequent occurrence from what I recall.
It's the only time I cared to see it. I looked at Pat DeMarco and said, all right, I'm leaving. But anyways, all right. So look, when we look at this game, DC, I don't care what I know the line is in favor of Tennessee. That doesn't really matter. But the line is exactly where it probably should be, because it with the exception of last year, it is traditionally a close game. It is the closest series in the league. Tennessee's only won once in Columbia since 2006, and that was in 2014. And I told Perry Orth the other day, I said, damn it, that would be 0 times, but you had to cough up a fourth quarter lead. And they did it, and they lost. That was one of 3 that happened that year. So, I don't have any reason to believe this game won't be that close. I think, look, we all talk about the quarterbacks, and we'll get to Colin in a minute. But Jarrett Garantano is at up and down career. However, he returns with Jim Chaney again this year. Finally, some consistency at the OC position. How dangerous can he be Saturday?
Well, he can be very dangerous, Jamie, and I think you saw that from the way he finished the season last year. You know, they had a really bad start to the year. Losing to Georgia State, losing to BYU. I think they had Alabama almost licked, and then I think they fumbled on the goal line.
Yep.
And so they ended up losing that game. But starting with the win over South Carolina, they won 6 straight to end. And that kind of ended their quarterback controversy, the question around if Garantano could be the guy. He really settled into that role. And I think he's going to do more of the same this year, really wants to show how consistent he can be. Now, in terms of South Carolina, he's not going to have the 2 guys that really ripped the Gamecocks apart last year in Marquez Callaway and Juwan Jennings. Those 2 guys are gone now. But I'm sure that they still have that playbook, which, if you recall, the second half of last year's game was pretty much a 10-yard slant over and over and over and over again. And South Carolina still couldn't defend it. So it's one of those things where Garantano looks real good. They do have a lot of personnel, but you guys know if you have an experienced quarterback, it makes you that much better to start. Of course, everybody's going to have to go to with the, well, who are we going to have available because of Corona, because of anything else that might happen? But that's something that could affect both teams. Right now, though, Tennessee, I think, is a 3-point favorite. That seems accurate. Right now they've got a lot more proven talent than South Carolina does on the offensive side of the ball.
Well, they have a similar situation as well, though, on the offensive side of the ball, because outside of Josh Palmer, I don't really know who any of those guys are at wide receiver. I mean, at Carolina, David, obviously we know who all the wideouts are at Carolina. We cover the team. But if you ask somebody in Knoxville, they probably don't know who many guys are outside of Shi Smith. So in saying that, what will we be keying on from an offensive standpoint this year? Is it we know that offensive line is good. Are they going to come out and really try to establish that run before they try to let Garantano throw it around a little bit?
Well, I think that would probably be the main thing that they would like to do. Jeremy Pruitt's a guy who also learned at Georgia and then went on to Alabama and then came on. So he's very familiar with what Mike Bobo wants to do. He's very familiar with what kind of the line of the SEC is to try to win a football game. You want to go ahead and establish that run and try to get it going. So if you're having success doing that, it takes that much more pressure off of Garantano to make these perfect kind of throws. So I think that's what they'll try to do, and I think that's probably what USC wants to do. But the fact is that whatever Mike Bobo's playbook is going to look like, you know that when he came in, it had a steady dose, if not dominated by Marshawn Lloyd toting the football. Mm-hmm. We can't do that now. So you have to see how much he readjusted. Nothing against Kevin Harris or Deshaun Fenwick or Quan White or Rashad Amos, but those guys just have not done it really in a game. And right now you're kind of looking at the point of saying, well, it really doesn't matter who starts because it's going to be a running back by committee. Those aren't words that USC wants to hear right now, considering how that has not worked over the past 3 or 4 years. But that's what they have. That's what they got to go with. And just in terms of production, Shi Smith is a receiver. And there's a lot of other talent in that room, but they just haven't done it in a game. So it's really going to be on Bobo right away to say you've got to establish some kind of rhythm, some kind of run, no matter what your game plan is, to always keep them guessing. Because if this gets into a predictable kind of a slog of a game, you don't know if you have the game breakers to really get out of that.
Coach is going to speak tonight, and hopefully maybe Todd will ask him about this because we know the callers only care about tight ends. But offensively for South Carolina, when the depth chart, David, when we got the depth chart Tuesday morning, there's a couple of interesting things on there. But the most interesting to me was Dylan being the starter at left tackle and then – trying to figure out who that right tackle is going to be. And I've kind of heard through the grapevine. We actually had somebody yesterday who said the same thing, that, Vershawn Lee has really played his way into the conversation at right tackle. And then and Justin Turntine kind of hit a little bit of a wall, still a talented kid, and hopefully he'll come around. But is that cause for concern? Will has kind of said for 6 weeks they feel like they've got 8 or 9 guys up front they could go with.
Well, of course there's cause for concern, Jamie. I mean, you just can't believe the lipstick on a pig in this situation. They wanted Turntine to have that role. It looked like he was going to have it for the first 2-3 weeks of preseason camp. Then all of a sudden it was a question. So it is, a good thing to have where you have a talent like Dylan Wanham where you can move him over to left tackle and not lose anything. And, in fact, you might get a little bit better. That takes care of Colin Hill's blind side. But now you got to fill that right tackle spot. So the good thing, Ja'Kai Moore and Jalen Nichols have played a lot of football, and they played it pretty good. So you feel good that you've got some experience there to take that spot. Vershawn Lee, a freshman, hasn't done it in a game yet, obviously, but he's shown some good things in preseason that you can plug him in there, and hopefully you're not going to lose too much. But being undecided on any position this close to the game is not a good thing. But that's just where South Carolina is. You think you have an answer, and all of a sudden, while you're watching this practice, it turns out not to be the answer. So it's going to be like this, I think, not so much on the offensive line or tackle spot, but throughout the wide receiver room and running back room, especially all year. You just don't know who's going to be your best guy until they go out there and do it. And unfortunately, Jamie, you don't have a lot of games that you can ease into them. You don't have a lot of chances to say, go out there and show me what you got. Because the main thing is like, listen, if you don't win this week, you're not going to have a whole lot of chances to win over the next 4 weeks. And we won't even talk about the rest of the season. So you got to go with your best right away. But when you don't know who your best is, what do you do?
Mm-hmm. Well, they think the best right now at quarterback is Colin Hill. All signs are that he has had a really good camp. The coaches have been high on him. I know his teammates have been pretty high on him. And here's the thing. Fans right now are still questioning the quarterback decision because they saw Ryan for 11 games last year. They know that Colin came from Colorado State and he had 3 ACLs and just the optics of that, maybe doesn't sit well with some people. So they rely on David Cloninger and others out there to put out the information that you receive from these coaches, because you can't get in there and see it with your own 2 eyes as well. But I continue to hear really good things about Colin Hill. He's not going to be a scramble around quarterback and run for 20, 30, 40 yards. Well, he might, but that's not what they're expecting. It's not necessarily a pass first thing either, right? He knows how to manage the offense. I do view that as a good sign, though, with the youth at running back and the youth at wide receiver, because there is talent there, but having a guy out there who can kind of manage the flow, the ebbs and flows of the ball game is probably the right choice here.
Oh, sure. And the fact is that he had an advantage that Ryan Olinsky was never going to have, and that he knows what Bobo wants. He knows how to operate Bobo's playbook. And as Mike Bobo has constantly said, he's not looking for a game manager. He doesn't like that tag. What he does like is just somebody to go out there and do what needs to be done. Make the right reads, do the right checkdowns, go through your progressions. And as Colin Hill even said, I'm going to try to get the ball to a guy who can make a play. Now, do I think I can make it? Maybe occasionally, but as Colin Hill said, I'm not going to be Cam Newton running down the field.
No.
That's just not who he is. But hopefully he can get the ball to somebody who can do that. The element of surprise and the element of mystery is going to be South Carolina's biggest advantage in this game, Jamie, and it's because you may know what a Mike Bobo playbook is all about, but you know Mike Bobo from Georgia, and you know him from Colorado State. And he doesn't have the receivers he had at Colorado State here, and he really doesn't have the horses he had at Georgia here. So what is he going to do? Is he going to switch up what he wants to do to suit his personnel? That seems to be the smart move. Yep. But now you don't really know what that personnel can do from a defensive standpoint. So they need to keep working that mystery and that surprise angle as much as possible because, Jamie, it's nothing against the guys that they have. It's just in terms of proven ability on the field, you can have all the mystery and surprise you want. It don't matter if you don't have any players. And I think that they do have players. Just right now, none of them are known outside of a couple. So that's something they're going to have to battle on Saturday and try to get enough points on the board and hold off Tennessee at the end.
On Twitter at DCPNC. That's a really good point. Michael Flint and I were talking about this last night on the phone. He's going to discuss this tomorrow about how Mike Bobo is really good at adjusting game plans and adjusting schemes to his personnel, and hopefully that's going to be the case on Saturday night. Let me flip back to the other side of the football. Has anybody asked J.C. Horn or Izzy McQuamu, if they remember that game in Knoxville last year? I mean, isn't it a hunch? Don't you have a hunch that these guys have something to say Saturday to Tennessee?
No, I'm sure that they do. I don't recall anybody asking them about that game specifically, but they know how it is, and it certainly wasn't all on them.
No,
the fact is those guys are on the corner of the field, and when you're not really lined up close to your receiver, you're probably going to let that receiver get loose if he's running a slant pattern. So that's where you depend on your linebackers to make those plays. And nothing against USC's linebackers, guys they had last year, like Ernest Jones and T.J. Brunson, who are really good players. But you get worn out chasing receivers all over the field if you're a linebacker, And that's a thing that Travaris Robinson and Will Muschamp, being the secondary coach, is going to have to look at, saying they know what worked last year. And they know USC's personnel is pretty much the same. It's just a year older. How are you going to adjust to that if they keep lining up those guys and just run that same pattern, middle of the field, middle of the field, middle of the field, all over? That's what won the game for Tennessee last year. USC had the 7-zip lead 15 seconds in. They led at halftime and didn't score again. So you can't have that anymore if you want to have this season be any kind of success.
Yeah. Got to get pressure on that quarterback. That was a big problem last year, and I'm not one. We're not going to get into this necessarily, DC, but I'm not one that is I know there's people out there going, oh, Zach Pickens, he was a 5-star. Why is he not starting? Sandage, he was a 4-star. Why he's not starting? Guys, the two starters, Keir Thomas and Jabari Ellis, are pretty good, number one. Number two, they ain't playing 70 plays. They're all going to play.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see them. Believe me. They're going to be out there a bunch. And hopefully they do a really good job. If you disagree with me, then say who it is. I think that the most important player in this game for South Carolina on offense has to be quarterback Colin Hill. But again, if you disagree, go ahead. And who is the most important player in this game on the defensive side of the football?
Ooh, that's a tough question. But to me, and it's not just because I wrote about him today. Look, nothing against Aaron Sterling, who had a really good season last year, and a lot of people voted him for preseason All-SEC honors. He probably deserved that considering the sack numbers that he had. But to me, the most important defensive player is that guy in the middle, and that's Ernest Jones. Mm-hmm. Ernest is a really smart player. He's a guy that can coordinate everybody else and tell them where they're supposed to be. He's a hard hitter. I mean, he had 97 tackles last year, and nobody was within 20 of him. He made some really good plays too. So that, to me, is the guy that you have to have. And you guys know, let's just take it under Will Muschamp, how good this defense can look when you have a Sky Moore in the middle of the field.
Yep.
You know how strong it can be when you have a T.J. Brunson in the middle of the field. Those guys are gone. Ernest Jones is here, and Ernest Jones can beat those two guys. So I'm not saying he's going to get 14 picks like Sky did. I'm not saying he's going to have 16 tackles in a game like TJ did, but he's the guy that I think it all flows from him because he's not going to give up. He's a voice, and he's going to get those other guys rallied around him and say, look, guys, we got to pull this off in front of our home crowd.
He certainly won't have 16 tackles and 14 picks in the same game. That would be a record. There's no
that
doubt.
Would be nice.
Yeah.
I mean, and if Jared Garantano can still keep throwing after he's thrown 14 picks, hey, more power to him. That would be something.
If he throws a quarter of 14 picks on Saturday night, I like Carolina's chances. I want to throw one more name in there. I'm going to put him 1B. You got 1A, Ernest Jones, J.J. Enagbare. I think J.J. Enagbare,
sure.
You got to have a huge day. Got to have a big day. And that doesn't mean he has to have 4 sacks.
He is at that pass rusher position, so he's going to have to do that. I mean, it's like, listen, you have guys at the other regular end spot, but the thing about that buck, you can stand him up, you can put his hand in the dirt, you can flex him out, you can drop him back, whatever. He got the job because he's really good, because he's really experienced, and he's a leader. He's got to make some pressure on Enagbare and on Garantano, and hopefully get USC some of that ability to affect the quarterback.
Look, I know we're pretty much running over time here. I'm going to talk about this again tomorrow with Mike Flint from a schematic standpoint, but he mentioned this to me last night, and I hadn't really thought about it. I guess I've thought about it, but never really got that deep into it. Mike said, look, I would not be shocked at all to see multiple times Saturday and moving forward. As you said, no offense to Aaron Sterling. He's had a hell of a career. He's had a hell of a preseason. He's preseason All-SEC by the media and I think some coaches and things like that. But Mike said he would not be shocked to see at some point in time JJ switch to that side of the football, put his hand on the ground, and then once the light is they feel like the light's on enough, he'll be on the other side at that butt position. You'll have both of those guys out there.
I would think so. I think that's a good assumption to have. Birch is really talented, and nothing against him starting. He'll get there. It's just he's got a really good and really experienced guy in front of him right now.
Yeah.
David, but before we let you go, quick question from Twitter. Any plans for the Gamecocks to honor their seniors early this year, or will that be held till the final home game?
Ooh.
I have not heard that, at least for this game. If they do, they might just, put it in at the last minute. But I personally have not heard that yet. But, plans can change. As we all know about anything this year, plans can change. So we'll just have to see on Saturday.
And according to Will Muschamp, we'll also see on Saturday if anybody's out. We won't know till right pretty much before the game starts. Who knows? Keep your eyes peeled, David. We'll be following along. I think we know what to look for in the paper this week, right? Are you going to write about the game, or are you talking about the equestrian team this week?
Oh, well, if the game gets to be a rut or something like that, I may just write, about my favorite Fall Guy episodes or something like that. But, I'll be there Saturday night and, bringing you the action from there. And hopefully there's something solid to write about. I mean, the fact is that USC really wants to get, this game in to get the taste out of their mouth of last year. But you're playing a ranked team. The results against ranked teams have not been great. But this game's at home in a season where really anything can happen. So USC's got some things going for it, as does Tennessee. But as you guys know, this series is very, very close over the years, and we'll see who wins the coin toss this time.
Last two times the Vols have been in Columbia, the Gamecocks have been in all black uniforms. They've lost. The last time Tennessee was in Columbia as a ranked team, they lost in 2016.
And last time USC wore all black to open a home season in 2017 against Kentucky. They lost.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, if we're just throwing around stats, Tennessee's lost their last two season openers.
Yeah,
so maybe it's 3.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, take that, man. Put that in your column and smoke it.
Hey, man, look, the all black uniforms look sharp under the lights. They really do.
They do. Mm-hmm.
But I'm also a strong believer in luck. And the fact is, wearing any semblance of black on the uniform has generally not worked out too well. But then again, it ain't about the uniform; it's the guy in it.
That's right. They can wear pink polka.
We'll see what happens.
Wear pink polka dots.
Any more like cliches and random things we could just toss in here that have absolutely no bearing on the game?
Last time there was a long-haired quarterback around here. What happened?
Well, don't mention that.
No.
I mean, there was a lot of good and a whole lot of bad involved with that.
No doubt. No doubt. Hey, buddy, thank you so much for the extended time. Really good to hear from you. Great column on Ernest Jones. What a tremendous young man. Looking forward to your stuff throughout the week on the bowl game, and then we'll do it again next week as we turn our attention towards the Florida Gators.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me.
There you go. One of the best. On Twitter, at DCPNC, David Cloninger. We're way past due. 4 minutes, as a matter of fact. But when we return, we do have Scott Glaze. We're going to dabble in some golf. We've got a bunch more football, including Mike Wilson out of Knoxville at 1:30. We'll get their side of this rivalry as well. So hang tight. A jam-packed final hour on the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen, is up next. The best cheesesteak in Charleston is at DB's Cheesesteaks. JB here. We say it every day, and we mean it. You voted for him. Let DB's Cheesesteaks in Avondale and West Ashley feed your family this football season. Use your favorite delivery app. Have them dropped off before your favorite game. And don't forget the boardwalk fries. They come with the Old Bay seasoning. DB'sCheesesteaks.com for the full menu. Hoagies, hot dogs, burgers, and more. DB's Cheesesteaks, the best cheesesteak in Charleston, the best cheesesteak for football.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risked their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
Hey guys, it's Darren, just here to tell you about our good friends over at Dog and Duck. They've got 3 locations, one in Bell Hall, one in Park West, and one, the new one, out on Clements Ferry. I can tell you from personal experience, it's the only restaurant in town that I've been to since this whole place has reopened. Everything is socially distant, very comfortable, and to top it all off, great selection of rotating craft beers, food specials every day, family meals. If you don't want to go in, you can order it and have some curbside pickup as well. Dog and Duck, 3 locations, proud partners of the JB and Goldwater Show.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Lowcountry. Our back 9 is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit stonoferrygolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf teams. Come see us. We would love to have you. stonoferrygolf.com.
Hi, I'm Chris Half, Public Information Officer at the Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum. We're home of the mighty USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, Flamagore, and Vietnam experience. And we're a proud partner of the JB and Goldwater Show. We invite you and your family to come see us and enjoy a day on Charleston Harbor. Visit patriotspoint.org for more information. And now, it is my honor to present the National Anthem.
Live, loud, and online.
Indeed it is. 1:06 on a Thursday afternoon. Welcome back to the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen. Check them out, StokesVW.com. We're at jbandgoldwatershow.com, and you can watch us daily, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Periscope. That's free. Podbean app, that's also free. Just head there, type in JB and Goldwater, and you'll find us across all social media platforms at JB and Goldwater. That's us collectively, and then individually, I'm at Sports Radio JB. And Darren, my good friend to my left here, right of your screen, he is at Darren Goldwater. The guy that's going to be in the middle of the screen here in just a moment is Scott Glaze. He is with Stono Ferry. The link's at Stono Ferry out in beautiful and the original Hollywood, South Carolina, where the weather has been fantastic, and I can only imagine what the course has looked like. And we would encourage all of you to go to stonoferrygolf.com and set your tee times now. So we'll get to golf in just a moment with Scott. First, though, I want to get his take on this weekend's big-time College of Charleston football matchup.
All right, you caught me off guard there. Hey, it's still undefeated.
Oh.
Cougars still undefeated. Talking about my pennants behind me, I need to snag me a CFC one out there. Need to get in touch with Marlene.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
No huge matchup this week.
Off week.
Got our off week, bye week. BYE, they've got really good special teams, and still another year without Cougar football, but that's all right. I was raised a Citadel Bulldog though with my dad, so
yeah.
Citadel playing Eastern Kentucky. I think we're gonna try to have a little. If they'll allow a tailgate, I don't even know. Maybe I shouldn't speak that out loud. And don't need anybody coming after us, but
don't say anything.
They're down this week. We'll be celebrating that.
Hey, just slip down there with a case of beer. No one will notice.
Nope.
Yeah, I would imagine if you're your family, if you just say, look, it's the Glaze family. Oh, Sorry, sir. Yeah, you have a good time.
Yep.
That's right.
Break
yeah.
all the rules and laws you want. StoneandFerryGolf.com. And Scott actually joining us live from the Dominican Republic this week. That's where the Corrales Punta Cana Resort and Club Championship is being played, and his good buddy Sepp Straka is in the lead at 7 under. No, he's not. He's in Hollywood. But you know, we'll talk about this a little bit. I think what everybody is still focused on in golf is, God, what happened last week in the U.S. Open. Scotty, you know, Bryson DeChambeau, 6 under, wins this thing. Did you realize, though, I saw this yesterday, I retweeted it, the final round was like the lowest rated final round in U.S. Open history or something. That was crazy.
Yeah, I'm kind of shocked by that. I think it's just the lack of fans. We felt it at the PGA Championship, not having fans there, and it was different. But in terms of prestigious and heralded major championships, it's really, really strange seeing the U.S. Open, especially in the New York metro area, which historically, when we have major championships up there, they are rowdy. Didn't have that. So that gave it an odd feel. And I think the nature of Bryson DeChambeau, it turns a lot of people off. Maybe I think there are people that are intrigued by it for sure, but I also think that there are people that just aren't as interested in his brand and what he's doing to the game of golf. And then Matthew Wolff, even though, you know, I've been pounding the drum of these young guys, the Kyle Morikawas, Matt Wolff, Victor Hovland, they were all part of that same high school and college class together to come out, these young guys on tour doing great things. I think just not a lot of people know who Matt Wolff is yet. And looking at that leaderboard, it was not a list of real popular names to draw people in. So I could certainly see the broadcast being down. I thought the broadcast was a little flat. NBC, you know, just picked up the tail end of this Fox contract. Fox had all the USGA rights, signed a like $1 billion deal to cover it for 10 years. They got out of that contract during COVID. And so I think that had something to do with the broadcast, but still any golf fan, any golf nut like myself, still glued to the TV on a U.S. Open Sunday.
Yeah, I was watching even with the NFL opposite. I think that's another reason why the ratings took a little bit of a
exactly.
hit.
Yeah, this event's usually in June, and it was pushed back to September.
Yeah, so let me ask you, though, about DeChambeau, because now in his last 2 majors, he has fared significantly better than he ever has in majors, but not without taking some shots from other golfers. I think Rory even pointed out maybe the technology's gone too far. If DeChambeau and other guys can just mash it down there, and then the rough isn't as penal because you're so far down, you can still blast out and then get up and down for par. So is there legitimacy to the equipment in golf having gone too far?
Yes, I think definitely so. And I think because DeChambeau is so polarizing, right? I mean, I don't even think you can say he's a love him or hate him type thing. I think he's just a polarizing figure in the game because he really is turning the game of golf on its ear. It was kind of a novelty act, I thought, until he actually did it in a U.S. Open and did it at a hard golf course. I mean, this is one of the hardest golf courses historically that the USGA visits, and he really just put on such a dominant display. He gained in that final round, 7.9 shots on the field. That is the most strokes gained in the final round of the U.S. Open by a winner since Johnny Miller did it, since Johnny Miller in 1973. 1973, Johnny Miller shot 63.
Hey now.
Uh-oh.
We got a frozen Scott Glaze.
Oh. I'll have to unfreeze.
Game 10.
There he is.
Sorry, you froze up for a quick second.
Uh-oh, am I back?
You're back.
You're good.
Oh, well, you know, out here in Hollywood, our internet might get a little shoddy from time to time. But, no, that's the most strokes gained by a winner in the final round since Johnny Miller, 1973, when he shot his historic final round 63 to win at Oakmont. And he gained nearly 11 strokes there. The field last week at the U.S. Open only hit 39% of the fairways. That is the lowest percentage of fairways hit since the stat started being tracked about 40 years ago. In fact, it's the lowest percentage in any PGA Tour event since the stat was being tracked. But what's crazy for Bryson is that he was still able to shoot 6 under par, not hitting many fairways at all. I think that's a testament to his strength of being able to get the ball out of the rough. And you see a lot of these guys that don't have that strength struggle to be able to hit the ball out of the rough. DeChambeau did make the comment that the fairways, if they are too narrow, it's going to benefit the longer players like himself, like a Rory, like a DJ. And if the fairways are too wide, it's going to benefit the longer players as well. So I really think this win is going to start spinning that wheel a little more rapidly for the USGA on stunting the growth of equipment and how we're going to set up golf courses for the U.S. Open, because, you know, we all want to see a proper U.S. Open. We want to see a very difficult test. You never want to see someone really dominate a U.S. Open. You want to see everybody grind it out, have it come down to the very end. So it's not going to be an instant thing, but I think what's happening, what Bryson is doing with the game of golf and the measures in which he's pushing this technology, I really do think that in a few years we could see the ball roll back and we could see the equipment roll back due to the fact that we kind of have to preserve this game a little bit. You know, when is enough? Not saying that we've crossed that limit, but we're getting there faster than I thought we would with the emergence of players like Bryson who are taking this new approach to the game.
Well, on Twitter, at Scott Glaze, he's the golf pro at Stono Ferry, 1:15 on a Thursday afternoon, reviewing the U.S. Open, of course, won by Bryson DeChambeau at 600. 16 of the 18 holes, Scotty, played over par. That is par for the course, though, in the U.S. Open, correct?
That is par for the course of the U.S. Open. I was disappointed round one. When we spoke last Thursday, the scores were very low. I really liked the way the golf course played in round 2 and round 4. In the final round, it was baked out. It was crusty. There were balls bouncing and rolling everywhere. First round, it was soft. It was easy. And then we saw just a total turn of events, and the course played really, really tough in round 2, and then softened up again and played easier in round 3. That's when we saw Matt Wolff shoot a 65. And then vault up to the lead there. Couple notes on Matt Wolff. He's the first player in 139 years to finish 4th or better in his first 2 major starts.
Holy moly.
The last guy to do that was Ned Cosgrove, who finished 3rd in the 1980 and 1981 Open Championships. So pretty neat stat there. And he is the youngest U.S. Open runner-up since Jack Nicklaus was runner-up to Arnold Palmer in 1960. So a lot of talent there for Matt Wolff. But speaking to the golf course for everybody but Bryson played very difficult, showed its teeth, showed why it's one of the most heralded U.S. Open venues. I think it looked great on TV. The greens were diabolical. I just would have liked to see it be consistent all 4 days. And that's something that the USGA continues to kind of struggle with in the U.S. Open, is just having a good, solid setup that is friendly to both fans and players alike. If they make it too tough, the players start to complain. If they make it too easy, fans like myself start to complain. So next year at Torrey Pines, let's hope that they can hone it in and we can have a really nice U.S. Open. Not saying that this U.S. Open was not a great one, but like I said, we'd like to see the proper U.S. Open and a proper test of par being your friend.
Did you catch the made-for-TV charity event? What was it? Monday or Tuesday with Tiger and Rory and Rose and JT at Paynes Valley, Tiger's new course?
Yeah, I caught bits and pieces of it live. I was able to catch up on a lot of it afterwards on social media, all the little clips and stuff. The golf course looks phenomenal, and I can tell you that Tiger is very young in his architectural career. I've been lucky enough to play a course that he designed outside of Houston in Montgomery, Texas, called Blue Jack National, which is phenomenal and pristine, very Augusta National-like in the bunkering and the way things are mown out, which was very similar to Paynes Valley. that we saw earlier this week. The golf course was great. I thought Justin Thomas had some awesome. His trash talk was next level. Same with Rory. Justin Rose, I felt kind of like he was the odd man out there. He was just a nice English bloke, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that was I think that was more for entertainment. I certainly was not tuned in there to see phenomenal golf. I thoroughly enjoyed seeing a really, really great new public golf course and seeing these guys banter and poke each other a little bit.
Is that course going to host some legit tournaments? I watched a lot of it, and it looks brutally hard and, like you said, an awesome course.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think just its location. I know the Champions Tour is playing there, or they do already have a couple of events up at the Big Cedar Lodge. I don't know if it will host a PGA Tour tournament or a U.S. Open or PGA Championship. I think if it does, that would be in 10, 15 years down the road. It's a brand new course, so we shall see. But we've had some members here at Stono that have taken a trip out to that Big Cedar Lodge before and just have raved about it. And I think that course, especially with Tiger Woods' name on it, they're going to be able to print some money here in the near future.
Financially, what is in it for golf course architects? I mean, obviously, like Jack Nicklaus and a bunch of these guys, they've designed these courses. You mentioned that Tiger is young in his architectural career in designing golf course, but I don't know if there's like a market for that or if it's just kind of negotiated each time. How does that work?
Well, right now there's not a huge market for it. I know when I was a kid and sitting in class and I should have been paying attention, I'd be doodling in my notebook, golf holes, just different holes out of my head. I think it's something that a lot of golfers do. That's what's so unique about the game of golf. You go all these SEC teams stepping on a field this weekend. Yeah, the stadiums are different. They have different nuances, but between the lines, it's all the same. Each golf course is totally different. It's unique. Stono Ferry is going to be different than the Country Club of Charleston, and the Country Club of Charleston is going to be different than Yeamans Hall, which is going to be different than this and that and the other. That's what's great about the game of golf, is that everything is unique. You can play the same golf course. I can go out and play Stono Ferry today, and it's going to be a totally different golf course in terms of conditions, in terms of setup, in terms of my golf game than it is going to be tomorrow. And I think that's just one of the beautiful, amazing things about the game. That's what's really great about golf course architecture, is that there are guys that can leave such imprints on this wonderful game with the golf courses that they design. There was a golden age of golf course architecture back in the 20s where we saw a lot of these classic courses designed, like Wingfoot last week. Some of the courses here in the area with a lot of history were designed in that era as well. Augusta National is one of those. That was the golden era of golf course design. There was a boom in the 70s, 80s, 90s of building golf courses, trying to build as many golf courses as you could. We saw that in Myrtle Beach.
Sure.
And and now what we're seeing is that those courses, having so many courses, it was overpopulated, overstimulated. So we're seeing some golf courses to now close. The big thing in golf course architecture right now is restoration of these courses from that golden age, from the early 1900s. So Gil Hance is a big name that you see in the restoration world, restoring these places back to their original glory, to their original plans, putting some money into them to make them as good as they were intended to be. Some might have fallen off in years past. So right now, that's the hot ticket in golf course architecture, is getting into restoration. There's not as much building of new golf courses. Now, however, you got somebody like Tiger Woods, you want Tiger Woods to build your golf course just due to the fact that he's going to be able to stamp his name on it. So we've seen new courses, that growth slow down. But it's still, I always find it to be one of the most interesting occupations out there as a golf course architect.
All right, got about 5 minutes left here. Speaking of Tiger Woods, two of the next 7 tournaments, Tiger has won. He won the Zozo last year, and of course he won the Masters, which is going to be played in mid-November down at Augusta National. So what does his schedule look like over the next 7 or 8 weeks leading into that what I think is going to be a beautiful time of the year in Augusta for the Masters.
Oh, it's going to be great. The next couple weeks, next 3 weeks really for the PGA Tour, are going to be kind of slow. Hard for golf to compete with football, and rightfully so. It shouldn't have to. Middle of October, we're going to have the CJ Cup, and that's actually going to be at Shadow Creek, where Phil and Tiger had their original match. Beautiful course out in Las Vegas. It was supposed to be over in China. That's gotten moved due to COVID. Tiger will not be playing there, but we'll see a lot of great players there. The week after, it's going to be the Zozo, which he won last year in Japan with COVID. It's been moved stateside, and it's at Sherwood Country Club, where Tiger has hosted several of his Tiger's World Challenge exhibition events. So very familiar there. So I think that's going to be a comfy spot for him to play well, to defend his title, not have to travel. Then we're going to have 2 weeks until the Masters. Today we are 49 days away from the Masters, which is extremely exciting. And the next 2 major championships on the schedule are at Augusta, which if that doesn't fire you up as a golf fan, I don't know what does. I was not impressed with Tiger at all. It really first time in a while since Tiger was having back problems where it was kind of hard to watch him play at the U.S. Open. This year is not lost though. Like you said, he's got the Zozo, got the Masters coming up, and I think he's going to take these weeks to really prepare his body to peak. He's talked about that a lot, of peaking for the major championships, which he was able to do last year at the Masters. And I think the strain of this condensed schedule that we had leading up and going through the U.S. Open, now he can kind of take a deep breath, relax, really focus on the areas of his game that were looking really rusty up in New York, and hopefully be ready to defend 2 titles there in about 3 weeks' time.
He will. He's going to win. All right. Speaking of beautiful golf courses and things like that, Stono Ferry is one of the most beautiful that we have in the entire state of South Carolina, and one of the most beautiful holes you'll see is the one Scott's going to tell you about right now. It's number 14. It's called The Crossing, and if you've never played it, boy, are you missing out.
Yeah, The Crossing, it is I think our number 13 we talked about last week is our most signature hole. This is where we get the most photographs, is on number 14.
Yep.
Our social media handles are tagged all the time with pictures from the 14th tee box, selfies, whatever they may be. The 14th tee box, it is named The Crossing. The tee box juts out it is a peninsula into the middle of the Stono River. With some of these huge high tides we've had, it has been quite the scene to be out on 14 tee box with that water almost crashing in over the tee box. It is 158 yards long. It is a par 3. From the tips, it's 158. And actually, most of our tees are on that back tee box. Our 2 forward tees, you do not have a forced carry over the river there, and you'll have about a 65 to 70 yard shot for your par 3. So again, you were right out there in the middle of the river, hitting back onto shore to a green that's 39 paces long. So it's a very deep green. It can be a 3-club green, depending on where the hole location is. And because we are right on the river, we're going to have wind to deal with, whether it's wind at our back, a crosswind, or wind in our face. So this hole, I've hit anything from a 6-iron going into the wind there on a back pin, and then hitting a wedge if it's downwind with a front pin. So very interesting shot. A lot to come into play and to think about on your tee shot. And then you're coming into arguably the most undulating green on our course. So if you're above the hole, it's going to be a very, very tough 2-putt. So you want to make sure to keep the ball below the hole and be able to putt up the hill there and be aggressive here on the 14th, which is the last par 3 on the golf course. So again, probably the most picturesque spot out here. And if you haven't seen it in person, you certainly need to come out and check it out for yourself.
Absolutely. It is one of my favorite holes I've ever been on. No doubt about that. Stono Ferry, stonoferrygolf.com. You can find Scott there as well if you need a lesson or 2 or 3 or more. He can do it all. You can also inquire about membership. You can set up your tee times and so much more. Actually, there's a ton on the website. If you need to get somebody a gift card, Christmas is not far away, folks. We're about maybe 90 days away or something from the big holiday. and you can find out all about the golf course. Do a flyover, as a matter of fact, of Stono Ferry. And so much more. StonoFerryGolf.com, the original Hollywood, the banks of the Stono River, the intercoastal waterway out there, just south of Charleston, South Carolina, and that is where the best hair in town will greet you when you walk through the door, Mr. Scott Glaze. Hey, man, really appreciate it. Enjoy that CFC football game Citadel football game this weekend, and we look forward to doing it again next week.
That's right. Thanks for having me, guys. Everybody enjoy some college football this weekend. And I didn't make my pick. My pick for Putucana is Will Zalatoris. So hopefully we can knock off another win. But everybody have a great weekend, and see you next week.
You got it.
My guy.
You're pretty good
Zalatoris.
at that. Yeah, no doubt. Thanks, brother.
See y'all.
All right, there you go. Scott Glaze joining us from Hollywood. It is time for a timeout. Thanks to our friends at Patriots Point for presenting the national anthem daily at 1 o'clock, patriotspoint.org, to tour the entire museum, the Laffey, the Clam-Gore, the Vietnam War exhibit, and, of course, the USS Yorktown, which has painted the skyline of Charleston, Mount Pleasant, right there at the foot of the Ravenel Bridge for a long, long time. If you haven't been there in a while, you should. They're white glove certified. They'll see you through, COVID-free, at Patriots Point, patriotspoint.org, holycitydrivein.com for this weekend's drive-in movie series starting tomorrow night right around 7:30. That is holycitydrivein.com for tickets, showtimes, and more. When we return, we'll take a drive right up the road. A little bit further than that.
Sort of.
To Knoxville, Tennessee. That is where Mike Wilson with the Knoxville News Sentinel will join us. If you are looking forward to this weekend's game between the Vols and the Gamecocks, you haven't heard it from their side yet, you will next here on the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road with exciting news. Every 2020 Tiguan S, our best-selling third-row SUV, is $3,500 off plus 0 APR for 72 months. But wait, there's more. With $299 down, you can own the Tiguan S for just $299 per month for 72 months at 0% APR. Not just one at this price, over 22 Tiguans to choose from. All $3,500 off plus 0 APR for 72 months and $299 down, $299 per month. Best of all, at Stokes Volkswagen, we are so desperate for used cars that we'll take any trade in any condition, running or not. We need your trade more, so we'll flat out give you more. And don't worry about your credit. Our lenders are more lenient than ever. So if you're interested in saving $3,500 on a new Volkswagen Tiguan S and owning it for $299 down, $299 per month, come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or StokesVW.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW. Plus tax tag includes $399.50 closing fee. Offer subject to lender approval. Expires month end.
DB's Cheesesteaks, the tastiest, juiciest, and now award-winning cheesesteaks in the Low Country. DB's Cheesesteaks delivers, and not just in quality. Download DoorDash, Uber Eats, or your delivery app of choice and have it dropped off at your doorstep. Original chicken, buffalo chicken, even pizza cheesesteaks. Not to mention incredible cheeseburgers, massive hot dogs, and dynamite hoagies. It's all there for you and your family. DB's Cheesesteaks in West Ashley. dbscheesesteaks.com.
Hey guys, it's Darren, just here to tell you about our good friends over at Dog and Duck. They've got 3 locations, one in Bell Hall, one in Park West, and one, the new one, out on Clements Ferry. I can tell you from personal experience, it's the only restaurant in town that I've been to since this whole place has reopened. Everything is socially distant, very comfortable, and to top it all off, great selection of rotating craft beers, food specials every day, family meals. If you don't want to go in, you can order it and have some curbside pickup as well. Dog and Duck, 3 locations, proud partners of the JB and Goldwater Show.
Now, hear this.
Who the hell is that?
The JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online.
All right, final segment here on this Thursday afternoon. Welcome back to the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online, and driven by Stokes Volkswagen. Mike Wilson joining us here in just a moment from Knoxville, Tennessee. All right, but before that, let me help out the South Carolina Department of Transportation.
Oh, please.
Because apparently this was not very well thought out, or maybe they just couldn't adjust it, and if they couldn't, I apologize for being a little bit critical with the tone in which I'm about to say this.
Wait, our roads are great. What are you talking about?
Yeah. On Saturday, if you are planning to drive to Columbia, or if you're listening in that area and you're planning to go to the game, expect delays on I-77 northbound. according to this release from today, this release was just issued, there is a bridge demolition that will be occurring on 277. So obviously that is much further down past both Bluff Road and Shop Road, where many Gamecocks who would leave the low country would get off on 77 and then get off on either one of those exits, either 5 or 6 at Bluff or Shop. However, if it is backed up pretty bad, it can certainly affect you. So please plan accordingly. Maybe leave yourselves a little bit of time if you were just planning to go up there because you can't tailgate or you're not going to tailgate and you're just going to try to get there in time for the ball game. Please plan accordingly. According to this release, congestion is expected throughout the weekend's lane closures and detours based on past traffic volumes, which, of course, would include game day, fall Saturdays. The worst congestion is expected Saturday afternoon along northbound I-77 in the Percival Road area with backups as far as the Decker Boulevard interchange or beyond. And, of course, or beyond would extend down to Shop and Bluff Road. So be aware this is actually going to begin on Friday evening, and it's going to extend throughout the weekend. It'll begin Friday evening, I-77 southbound. So if you're actually coming into Columbia this weekend, tomorrow evening to spend the weekend there for the ball game, that might be Mike Wilson, as a matter of fact, even though he'd be coming down I-26. Just expect potential delays on I-77 because somebody at the Department of Transportation thought it'd be good to blow up a bridge on game weekend.
Well, Mike Wilson could blow up our show, so he's with us now.
Good gracious. Hey, Mike, how are you, bud?
Good. Just, coming in here right in the nick of time, everything, right?
Yeah, that's roads in South Carolina for you. That's what we do around here. Let's try to make it as difficult as we can. But, hey, real quick, man, before we get to the ball game, Cloninger says you're a terrible trivia player.
It's funny. It's funny that he would drop that and then run away and hide because it's exactly what he did when it came to trivia in Columbia. He won once, then never came back for our 5-week winning streak. It's kind of a classic move there to kind of drop a bomb and then not be there for the rebuttal.
Oh, wow. I mean, he said you never won.
Oh.
Yeah, well, he didn't show up to see us win. He just abandoned it.
Oh.
But let's call it what it is. Winning trivia at a place called the Village Idiot.
Hey, man.
No, right?
Hey, that's a gold mine up there. You know that. And they got damn good pizza.
No.
And great beer prices. I'll give them that, too. This is like politics. You got to get both sides of the story around here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, no doubt, DC is good at trivia, but it's hard when you only show up once and then you never come back.
I'll pass along the message.
I'm passing it along right now.
Good. All right, Mike. Are you? You'll be making the trip this weekend to cover the game, correct?
I will not be. My coworker will be down there. I won't.
Okay.
Just given the pandemic, only one credential per away outlet. So
yeah, I know. I was talking to Steve Fink about that just the other day. Times are tough. There's no doubt. Yeah. But Mike, of course, with the Knoxville News Sentinel, and he's been kind enough to join us here this afternoon, Thursday. We're a shade over 48 hours away from kick, and we're going to really get into the ball game here just a little bit, Mike. But I do want to ask you about Austin Pope. Got the news that the tight end probably going to be out for the year. Look, I know he's not a big pass catcher, but he is a big man, and I know that Jim Chaney does like to use his tight ends a lot, especially in protecting Jarrett Garantano or whoever the quarterback may be at times. How big of a loss is Austin Pope this year for the Vols?
Significant. Tight end is the position on that group that has the least experience of anyone. He's the only notable returner. He was the key guy last year. They use him at that Y back position as a full back blocker out of the backfield. As you said, not a big pass catcher. They had a guy last year, Don Wood Anderson. They used a little bit for that. But yeah, Austin Pope in the run game, and in terms of the experience of that position of knowing run and pass schemes, it's a huge loss to not have a guy like that.
Well, and you put that with what was going on maybe only just a few weeks ago. We had heard down here, and correct me if I'm wrong, and hopefully the reports were wrong, but we had heard around here that there was 40-something players at one point in time that were kind of in and out of practice because of COVID, tracing. Not necessarily that they had 40 positives. I don't think that's true at all. But they had a bunch of guys up there who had missed a bunch of time. How has that affected their preparation for the season and for this ball game, of course, in particular?
Yeah, you know, one week Tennessee canceled because of some positive tests. I think it was just a handful that week. But then, yeah, a week later, as you mentioned, I mean, they canceled a scrimmage on a Saturday, basically because they didn't have enough offensive players to really put the scrimmage together. I believe it was between 44 and 48 out.
Wow.
Due to a combination of injuries, COVID-19 positive tests, and then largely contact tracing. But that was very much a story for Tennessee's preseason camp, as I'm sure it was a lot of places, is just that kind of revolving door of players who are affected by the contact tracing, not being able to have guys in there. I know it affected the offense, especially for Tennessee, wide receiver, running back, offensive line. I think the big effect now is just what kind of chemistry do you see from those position groups, since they didn't get the full preseason preparation they might have expected.
Yeah, and you know what? Credit to Jeremy Pruitt for being very transparent about that, or at least as much as he could be per the rules. And you're right too. You know, when it comes to the offense, and we'll get to Jarrett Garantano in just a minute, but you got Jim Chaney back, and consistency is good. And this guy's been calling plays a long time. He's really good at it. But when you look at this offense, you know, I like the tailback position. I think the Vols are very similar to the Gamecocks out wide, Mike, and you can correct me if I'm wrong there. Definitely know about Josh Palmer, but outside of that, you know, who are they? Just unknowns. Not saying they're not good. It's like in Columbia, you know, Shi Smith, and then the rest of the guys right now are kind of unknown. But the offensive line is known. And I know that K-Bays is not necessarily eligible yet, and we'll see if the SEC ends up clearing him. Maybe you've got some more insight on that than we do. But even if they don't, up front they're pretty good, and that's a good sign, especially when you play in this league.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head, kind of summarizing the offense there. I mean, you do have kind of a known commodity in Jarrett Garantano. I mean, we've got 25 starts. You'd like to think it's a known commodity. The way that he played last year, it's hard to know. You'd expect, and I assume you guys know this. If you don't, you'll hear it a lot, I assume, on the broadcast Saturday. This is the first time he's had the same offensive coordinator for 2 years.
Yep. Yep.
It's been every year cycling through. That's hard to do. But this offense is the tailbacks. I mean, that's the highlight of this offense is Ty Chandler and Eric Gray, both very dynamic guys. And they are running behind an offensive line that for the first time in a few seasons is a boast for Tennessee. They haven't really had that unit. I mean, Butch Jones' last year at Tennessee, that offensive line was a joke. And Pruitt kind of had those same guys that first year where Trey Smith was the only notable guy. But they've rebuilt that unit very quickly with some JUCO ads, transfer ad. It's a good unit. They got a lot of guys with starting experience, a lot of big bodies, which is a big change. And you've got to have it, as you said, to compete in this league. And I think some of Jarrett Garantano's struggles link back to that, where he had no chance in that pocket. And now it looks like a team that can protect the quarterback and run the ball.
Yeah, you are really good. Gene was right. On Twitter, by Mike Wilson with the Knoxville News Sentinel 141 here on a Thursday afternoon, JB and Goldwater show. All right, so let's talk about JG here for a second. All right, so here's Garantano, and look, I've been fairly critical of him over the last couple of years, and I think rightfully so. But at the same time, acknowledging that this young man does have talent. I mean, he was a 5-star kid coming out of high school. He's got a big arm. But let's go back to last year, Mike, because you're the guy, you're the dude who can add the insight here. All right, so we're before we get to the Carolina game, you know, before Carolina comes up there and rightfully, you know, takes a lead in the first half and then can't do crap in the second half, and Tennessee shoves it up their rear ends. But before that game, here's Garantano, who there were reports that he might not even be on the football team anymore. Like, he was having major issues, and I don't know if it was between him and Jeremy Pruitt or him and teammates or other coaches. Can you add some insight into that situation and how he rebounded from that to lead the Vols to 6 straight wins to finish the season?
Yeah, you know, that moment, if I'm not mistaken, was after the Alabama game last year, where there was just some doubt about what was next for Jarrett. So in that game, gosh, I can't remember the exact score, but Tennessee was giving Alabama more of a game than you would have expected it to. They might have been down 10 at that point, right around there. And they got down to the 1-yard line, and Garantano either audibled or went away from the play. I can't remember exactly what happened there, but needless to say, he fumbled at the goal line on a goal line play. Alabama scoops it, runs it back decent ways. Game's over at that point. I mean, that was Tennessee's last real threat in that game. And that was kind of the last point of what was really a really crap first half of last year for Jarrett. When you think they lost to Georgia State, lost to BYU, he wasn't clicking in this offense. To me, from what I was watching a quarterback swim. I mean, you could see him thinking through the plays and not processing and reading them the way that you'd like to see. And yeah, that was kind of the low point. And yeah, I remember there were some questions on whether or not he was still around, but my memory of that is him apologizing to his teammates and really kind of righting the ship, so to speak. And obviously he came back, had a massive game in leading them back at Kentucky, then set career highs, threw for more than 400 yards at Missouri. So definitely finished the season on the right note after some really bad times.
All right, so now after all that, and in addition to what you stated a few moments ago with Jim Chaney being there, some consistency with an offensive coordinator, what type of season would you expect out of Jarrett Guarantano? I had somebody, I want to see if you agree with this. I had somebody mention to me yesterday, and I thought it was a very good evaluation of Guarantano. He said, "Look, the floor for him is actually pretty high. The problem is the ceiling isn't much higher." What would you say to that comment?
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of, to phrase it differently, you kind of know what you're going to get in Jarrett Guarantano,
right? Yeah.
Which is why last year was such a surprise in so many ways. When, I mean, as a third-year starter, he just really flubbed the season out of the gate. Just didn't look like a confident and at points not a competent player. But he is. He's proven that previously. He's shown to be that player. And then he did late last season. But yeah, I mean, you know he's got a good arm. You know he can play. You know he can move a little bit, not a ton. But, I mean, you kind of understand what you get with him. And they also had proven offensive weapons around him. But, yeah, I think when you look ahead to this season, what you expect, again, is you want to see what you expected to see at the start of last year, which is confidence and competency in the offense, getting out there, running it, making his reads, making his progressions. You just didn't see that at the start of last year. But the question mark for how well that's going to go is really going to be about the wide receivers. I think you lose Juwan Jennings, Marquez Callaway. Mm-hmm. How you replace them matters as much as anything else for Jarrett Guarantano's success.
Mike Wilson joins us, Knoxville News Sentinel, covering the Vols. They make the trip to Columbia here in probably about 24 hours. The game's at about 48 hours. How confident are the Vols? I mean, they're one of the preseason darlings in a sense because of how well they finished last year, like you were just pointing out. How confident are they that they can back this up?
I think the confidence largely stems from, the way they finished last year, but also it's Jeremy Pruitt's third year. Mm-hmm. They've gotten to layer some good recruiting classes now, at a top 10 one last year. So you're past that point now in a program under a new coach where, it's not about the previous coach's players anymore. And it's not about what you were left. This is your team now. And so I think that's where some of that confidence comes from. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to me to see how they back it up. I think the way that this preseason went with how many guys were out with contact tracing tempered some of that a little bit. And I think it should, but they're not alone in that. I don't know how often Will Muschamp shared numbers on contact tracing, guys out or anything like that. But I mean, when you think about a roster of about 100 guys and you're down basically half of it, I mean, that's significant. And when it's significant enough to not be able to have an offense to do a scrimmage, really, that's also significant. So I think, there's a lot of momentum and expectation going in, but this season in so many ways is just a crapshoot in terms of, you're not knowing who you're going to have week to week. But yeah, I mean, jumping ahead to something you might want to talk about, I think Tennessee's got to have a winning record this season for them to feel good about what they do.
I think this is very similar. This is a similar situation for the Vols that we've been dealing with around here at South Carolina, because I respect the hell out of Will Muschamp, and he does things the right way, and he's kind of been searching for that breakthrough, especially after he won 9 games in year 2. And then you look up the road, there's Jeremy, another guy you can't help but respect. I mean, he's always done things the right way, and I think Vols fans are really coming around to him. I know last year was a tough start, losing to Georgia State and BYU. There were some folks really chirping in Knoxville, but certainly has calmed the waters. And so I guess what I'm leading to here is I know the popular conversation is Jarrett Guarantano, lack of wide receivers, but how about the other side of the football? I mean, you got some. Yeah, I think they're going to start 3 guys up front who are seniors. Correct me if I'm wrong. You got Toto and Quavaris Crouch, who Tennessee beat South Carolina for recruiting. He was one of the top running backs in the country. He's playing linebacker for the Vols. I think they feel pretty good about that. The front end of that defense, Mike, should really play well. I anticipate they'll play well. I think that's something that could carry them through the year.
It's going to be interesting to me to see how that front seven does play. I think the biggest issue they have defensively is how they pressure the quarterback.
Yeah.
Darrell Taylor was everything for them last year in doing
Sure.
that from outside linebacker. He's gone. So how they replace that threat and that presence is going to kind of make or break this defense to me. The inside linebackers are the highlight of it. Henry To'oTo'o, I think, in a league obviously with a lot of good inside linebackers, he's a guy to me that probably ends up on the first team at the end of the year. He's going to make a lot of tackles. Yeah. Very good player. The cornerbacks are another strength. 30-year guys in Bryce Thompson, obviously a South Carolina kid, committed to South Carolina at some point. And Alontae Taylor, also a third-year starter. So you've got those guys as juniors starting for their third year, and then the inside linebackers. That's where the money's going to get made on this defense. They need to find a pass rush, though, because those guys are seniors, and they got a lot of depth up front, but it better be good depth at some point if you want to really compete in the lines on the defensive side.
Around here, most Gamecocks think that this is the best barometer game for South Carolina this season. Of course, it's the first game of the season, and we all know things can get it really out of whack. All you've had to do is look at the last 3 weeks of college football, right? And there can be some wacky things that happen, and this year more so than ever because of COVID. How is this game viewed in Knoxville, or do they view this similarly to how it's being viewed in South Carolina? Like, this is a great barometer game as an opening matchup to the season for Tennessee.
Yeah, these are two teams that have played largely really close games over the past few years.
Yeah.
Annoyingly close games. Can we get this thing decided already? Last year's, I think, was the first one that broke from that trend in maybe 4 or 5 years. So just annoyingly close games, but so I think these teams are always a good test, and it's interesting to see them line up early in the season for a change, especially in the midst of a pandemic where there's so much uncertainty. But yeah, I think both teams are going to learn a lot in this one, obviously. But are they evenly matched? They have been recently, so I like to think they're probably going to be evenly matched again, and we're in for a good one.
I've got a stat for you, and this is amazing because there was a point in time where Tennessee owned South Carolina. It was Gamecocks new to the league. It was the Orange Crush. At the end of every year, you had Tennessee and Florida and Clemson, and for a long time, South Carolina just didn't have much success against any of them. Of course, that changed under Coach Spurrier. But last year's win for the Vols, 41-21, was the first time in 20 years, Mike, that they had beaten South Carolina by 20 or more points. The last time happened October the 30th, 1999, and that was Coach Holtz's first season in Columbia, and, of course, they went defeated, lost every game that year. But it had been 20 years since the Vols had done that. They obviously won games, but nothing, with that significant of a margin of victory. And so I think that was a little bit of a surprise. And there were some wonky things that happened last year. Tennessee made a couple big plays on special teams. Wide receivers made a couple big plays. You already mentioned Jennings, who was there for 30 years, and Marquez Callaway. But, and then now you fast forward to this year. How about the fact that Tennessee has won one game in Williams-Brice Stadium since 2006? Is that surprising to you, and why do you think that is?
What year did they win that?
2014. And as a matter of fact, Carolina coughed up a 2-touchdown lead in the fourth quarter. All the credit in the world to the Vols, but it's crazy. Isn't that crazy to think about?
Yeah, so I covered Carolina in 2016. So I was there for that one where Bentley started.
Yep.
They beat Tennessee, was ranked in the top 25 for sure. And South Carolina really kind of owned them in that game. I think the slant to Brian Edwards was kind of that nice play.
Yeah.
And then 2 years ago, close game, but yeah, South Carolina again. I'm not too surprised. Having covered South Carolina for a year and having covered a handful of road games there now, that's a harder place to play than people think it is. Yeah. That stadium rocks when it really gets going. It's one of my favorite places to cover a game because the press box shakes and it freaks me out. It makes it a little uneasy. I like that.
Yeah,
it's a tough road environment. I think because it is a little bit smaller than some of those big time SEC venues. I think that adds to that noise factor, and it's a good fan base. So yeah, it's not too surprising to me, especially considering Tennessee's on-field run through that. They haven't really been great during that stretch. They've had some decent teams, but not great teams. Mm-hmm. Then there's a window in there where Carolina was awesome for 3-4 years. So it's not overly surprising.
Yeah, of course, one of those years, 2013, it had the Gamecocks just beat the Vols in Knoxville that year, which they were supposed to do handedly. They would have gone on to the SEC championship game and they didn't do it. One final quick question here pertaining to the ball, or two final quick questions here pertaining to the ball game. Mike, you got a bunch of coaches here that know each other quite well. Obviously, Mike Bobo and Jeremy Pruitt spent time on the same staff at Georgia. Jim Chaney's been around this league a long time. Will Muschamp. These guys all know each other really well. Do you lean one way or another from that standpoint? Does one of these coaching staffs have a little bit of advantage over the other one?
No, and I think it goes back to overall familiarity. I mean, even like Tracy Rockers, now South Carolina's defensive line coach. He's
Great point. Great point.
The last few years. There's so much familiarity in this league, and guys cycle through it so often that I'm not sure there's an advantage in that because everyone knows everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, Will Muschamp and Jeremy Pruitt come from the same coaching tree, so they've got the same defensive philosophy largely. So there's so much crossover and overlap in those things that it really is just who executes the same style better when it kind of comes down to it a lot of the time.
All right, what are your critical factors, critical points in the ball game this weekend?
I think if Tennessee runs the ball well, they'll win the game. The matchup I'm definitely most interested in watching is how do Tennessee's wide receivers handle South Carolina's cornerbacks? Because J.C. Horn, Israel Mukuamu are very good players. Yeah. And Tennessee's got some new guys at wide receiver, some young guys. So that's that matchup I'm kind of honed in on to see how that plays out. But, I think for the first time in a while, Tennessee's got an edge in the trenches over some teams in the SEC on the offensive line versus defensive lines. So I expect Tennessee to have some success there.
Yeah. Gamecock's going to need to protect Colin Hill on Saturday night, certainly. And we'll see what Jeremy Pruitt and that staff dial up to try to get pressure on him. Gene was right, Mike. You're really good. We'd love to have you back. Thank you so much. You know what? Probably my favorite road trip in the SEC. I've been everywhere. I love going up to Knoxville. I've spent a bunch of time at Calhoun's and other places. But it's certainly a beautiful trip, and it's always been a great fan base. I've always been treated very well up there. So I hope you're enjoying it, man, and thank you so much.
You bet. Thanks for having me on, guys.
You got it. There you go. Mike Wilson, by Mike Wilson on Twitter, @by Mike Wilson. He, of course, is with the Knoxville News Sentinel, and that was really good insight from him, and really good to get his take on what happened with Jarrett Garantano last year. Because I remember going into that game, and he's right. And DC mentioned this earlier. You know, Bama was on the ropes. If you remember that game last year, everybody was watching it going, no, because Tennessee hadn't gotten on their run yet, you know, and going into that game, the expectation was Alabama was going to walk the dog. I mean, this thing was all but over.
Yep, but
it wasn't. They played really well, and Garantano, kind of paraphrasing here, Mike, but utilizing my memory at the same time, didn't do what he was told to do. And then fumbled that football, and it was pretty much over from there. Bama picked it up and ran it back, and they had problems, but certainly got it turned around against South Carolina. Gamecocks looking to return the favor this weekend, and he's right. If you're talking about receiver corner, or if you're talking about receiver secondary matchups this weekend, that favors, in my opinion, South Carolina because they've got the better secondary. But on the flip side, Gamecock receivers against the Vols secondary. I don't know enough about their secondary either. We know of those four groups, the Gamecock secondary is the best of those four.
Yeah, but it's also similar. I mean, you don't know a whole lot about the receiving core and the playmaking ability that they have for Tennessee. And you can say the exact same thing about the Gamecocks receiving core and what that's going to be. But, on the defensive side, do you give the edge to the Gamecocks?
No question.
Secondary and receivers? Yeah, you do. Update from the Pac-12, which is – it's a good update. They are going to vote. I lost the tweet. They should be voting here soon about whether or not they're going to return to play and what that will look like, whether it will be a uniform start date or if it'll be kind of a staggered thing. The state of California has just allowed for or said that they will increase the number of allowable people in a given space so that teams can practice and play. So basically the last obstacle for the Pac-12 has just been cleared prior to this vote.
All right. Really good. Pac-12 football coming your way at some point in time in the next
See, the Big Ten was a leader. They followed the Big Ten.
Yeah, I know. Who was it that put last week? It was another guy I respect, and you just wonder what. You're not even coming out of left field. He's coming from the bullpen.
Mm-hmm.
Stuart Mandel. Oh, the Big Ten's going to look great in this. I'm like, oh, wait a second. All of a sudden, they're leaders and all this. Give me a break.
Uh-huh.
All right, real quick before we run. Happy National Punctuation Day on the handy dandy National Days calendar. Well, it's also the Schweckenfelder Thanksgiving.
The who? Okay.
and National Cherries Jubilee Day.
Nah, I'm not a big cherry guy.
No. Just saying.
That all right?
Tomorrow, though. Ooh.
National.
Oh, boy.
National
Oh, boy.
almost SEC game day.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah. Tomorrow is tomorrow's a good day. Tomorrow, if you like food, tomorrow's a good day.
I like food.
Yep.
Yeah.
Tomorrow is a good day.
Yeah, generally like food.
Yeah, me too. Tomorrow, Rafael Esparza, he'll join us from Vegas at VSI Doc Sports on Twitter. Maybe if you have a line that you're interested in, or send it to us. Send it to Darren, and I will ask Rafael about it tomorrow. We usually try to cover all the big ones, but sometimes we miss. Maybe you're planning on laying a few bucks mybookie.ag this weekend. Send it our way. He'll join us tomorrow. Mike Flint tomorrow as well. We're going to try to get a high school update tomorrow.
I got Stratford Somerville tomorrow, which might be a pretty good game.
My man Denny McDaniel. Tomorrow night.
Maybe Stratford's a sneaky contender.
I'm going to tell you right now that they are.
Okay.
They are.
I'll be learning more about them tonight.
I'll never say go Knights, but they are.
Okay.
I'm a Wando guy. I can't say it.
I know.
Thanks to David Cloninger, Scott Glaze, and Mike Wilson from the Knoxville News Sentinel. That was really good. For Darren Goldwater, I'm Jamie Bradford. Have a wonderful, terrific Thursday afternoon. It's beautiful out there. Get out and enjoy it. JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen, returns tomorrow at noon. Hey, boys, it's game week.
Yeah.
Strap it on. We'll see you then.